I just leased a new Lexus IS in hopes to raise my Uber pay rates since I can now drive the luxury portion of Uber, which pays more. I recently moved to Los Angeles to expand my Uber business in hopes of renting more cars and hiring employees to drive for me on the Uber app. It's been 3 months now since I arrived in Los Angeles. It's quite the culture shock for me, as I've lived my entire life in a small rural country town in the northeast area of California. I drove down to Los Angeles, which took me 2 days of driving, and lived in my car for the first week. Meanwhile, I found a studio room available. I tried to avoid the rush hour part of traffic, so I usually take a break from 4 p.m. through 7 p.m. since you're usually stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic. It was summertime in California, so people were staying up later, and more people were out in the streets. The smell of human urine burned your nostrils as you walked down the sidewalks in some areas that were heavily populated with homeless people. I usually sit in my car and wait for the next customer that needs transportation to avoid being mugged hanging out on the sidewalks. Fireworks could be heard in the distance. Sometimes they are so strong they sound like military bombs. Even though they're illegal in the area, some people still tend to light off plenty of fireworks, which seems like a daily thing out here. It was around 10:30 p.m. when I was sitting next to a Taco Bell. I could smell the food and was debating to walk in and order a crunch wrap with extra cheese. At this moment, my phone vibrated. A new passenger was requesting a ride just 1 mile away and needed to go across town, which would be a 30-minute drive. This is my favorite type of requests, since you make some decent money for the longer trips and don't have to deal with too many stops. I accepted the request and headed over to my customer. I messaged them and said I was 30 seconds away in the black Lexus. I pulled up and there stood two young men wearing the cloth face masks. Since we're still in a pandemic, I thought nothing of it since a lot of people are still wearing masks. They both sat in the back seat of my car as I greeted them with no response from either of the two men. I looked at my app and confirmed their location when one said, "Yes," in a rather weird voice, almost as if he was sick or attempting to disguise his normal voice. I've done a lot of rides, so I thought nothing of it and began to head towards the location. It wasn't the best part of town, as I had been in this area before, and you get instant bad vibes from a lot of young gangbangers hanging in the area to your occasional street working girl blocking your car in the middle of the road. We were about 10 minutes to the destination, and all I could hear is the passenger exchanging text as his phone would beep and vibrate every time a new text came through. We exited the highway and headed to their destination, which was 3 blocks away. As we pulled up near their location, both men lowered their back windows and told me to slow down and to drive to the end of the road. As I slowed down, the gunfire began. Both men were shooting out their windows from my left and my right side towards the apartment buildings, and I saw several bystanders taking cover, some running down the road. My ears instantly began ringing from the loud bangs coming from inside the car. I wasn't sure what was happening at this moment, so I hit the gas and began to drive fast down the road. I began shouting, "What's going on?" as I didn't know if we were being shot at. At this moment, both men jumped out my vehicle and took off running in the same direction. I could see them jumping over a small wooden fence, then running through the bush where I could no longer see them. Several weeks have gone by now since this, and I'm all tied up with paperwork and court proceedings as a witness for the ongoing investigation. Apparently, the two men who committed the crime had robbed a female walking down the road talking on her phone. They used the same stolen phone to order the Uber ride that I happened to accept that night. I've recently retired my career. I worked at a machine shop for the past 35 years and decided I would drive for Uber to spend my free time meeting new people while earning a little extra income. I have a small 4-door Toyota Corolla that runs great and saves a ton of gas. With high gas prices these days, I feel very happy I bought this car. I live in New York City. It's a very busy place, from young travelers up to elite business owners, all nestled in a few miles. Most of my Uber rides are short distances, around 3 to 5 miles one way. I make an extra $60 a day driving for Uber, which is more than enough for me since I receive a monthly pension from being retired. It was early morning. I had already ate breakfast and drank my coffee. I begin my shift by driving down to the donut shop and buying coffee and a donut, but today I decided to eat at home since I had leftovers from the night before. I drove straight to the Central Park and headed to the outskirts of the city where the apartment buildings and residential homes are located. I usually get plenty of customers here since they need a ride into town to work or to buy their groceries. A few hours had gone by and I was almost done with the day. I had just dropped off 3 young girls to a local outdoor shopping mall and figured I could do 1 or 2 more rides before heading home. I parked near a coffee shop. I could smell the dark roast coffee beans in the air with a line of people waiting in line to order their coffee. I've had their coffee in the past, and while it's quite expensive, it's some of the best coffee I've had in the entire city. At this moment, my phone vibrated on my lap as a new customer was requesting a ride. They were 3 minutes away in the city and needed a ride just 2 miles away. I accepted the request and headed to pick up my customer. I saw a middle-aged man wearing a trench coat waving me down from the sidewalk. I figured this was my customer. He hopped in and thanked me for arriving. He said he was headed to the private football stadium to meet a friend. I began driving and we got stuck in some slight traffic. My customer received a call which he did not answer. At this moment, I heard the cock of a gun, and the man in the back seat said, "Look, I won't hurt you, but I need all your money. Don't panic, don't scream, just hand it over and you'll be left alone." I stood there in shock, wondering if this was real life, if I was really being robbed in broad daylight in the middle of the city with cars all around us. I looked through my rearview mirror and I could see the gun being pointed right at the back of my head. I began to panic as my heart raced faster and faster. I handed the man my wallet, which only had $40, and my phone, which I had sitting in its holder on the dashboard. As I handed over my items, I heard a loud bang on the back window of my car. To my surprise, it was a police officer who was behind us who witnessed everything. My window was down while the officer pointed his firearm at the passenger. I shouted, "Officer, officer, he's robbing me," as I jumped out of my vehicle for safety. The officer began shouting at the passenger to put his firearm down or he will shoot him. He opened the door, pulled the suspect out, and arrested him on sight. I don't know how this all could happen that way it did, but I feel like I had some higher power watching over me this day. I started working for a new luxury car rental company. They rent supercars to the public and also run a small fleet of Uber Lux cars, which are the larger new model Ford Expeditions. That's the department I work in. I'm considered a VIP driver, and they hire me to drive their large SUVs on the Uber app. I get paid by the hour, so even if I have no passengers, I'm still being paid by the private company who owns the cars. Driving the luxury cars, I notice we usually get large families who need a big vehicle or individual businessmen and women that need transportation. It's been 6 months, and I've become comfortable with the job. I only work 4 days a week, but they're 12-hour shifts, but I enjoy the extra 3 days off instead of the normal 2. The job pays good, since we also do private escorts, and some of our vehicles have bulletproof windows and door panels for more VIP clients. I've been trained on the VIP vehicles since they require special training due to the extra weight of the vehicle, and they want their drivers to be more experienced, aggressive drivers in the case of an emergency while transporting a VIP passenger. I have moved to drive the VIP vehicles full time now. I've been transporting VIP customers from the airport to their home sites on a regular basis. Most of our clients are coming from the airport. I don't know why, I just figure they are very important business people. They also tip very well, so I do my best on the job to present myself very professional. Everything was fine until this one day I had one of the scariest experiences in my life. I'll start off by saying, nobody got harmed, but someone wanted us dead, both the passengers and me as the driver. It was a normal VIP pickup call. I had a husband and wife, business partners. I was picking up from the international airport. I always arrive 1 hour ahead of time since we have special access into the airfield since our passengers arrive on smaller private jets and not the usual large commercial airliners. The jet had arrived with my passengers. As I drove up through security and drove through the exit doors of their private jet, my customer both exited the jet quickly and jumped into our vehicle. It was a regular customer I had seen before, but we never really exchanged many words. I closed the door behind them and jumped in the driver's seat. I locked all the doors and began exiting the airport field. We went through city traffic for a while since the highway is about 10 miles from the airport. Finally arriving on the highway, it was smooth sailing. The highway was clear and regular 70 through 80 mile per hour drivers were flying by. We headed down the highway for around 15 minutes when I could see the merge to the next highway up ahead, around 1 mile. It was a narrow bridge with one lane we had to go over to get onto the new highway to continue to my customer's destination. As we got closer to the bridge, a small vehicle sped by me, cutting me off, almost missing their chance to get on the bridge and merge as well. As we went over the bridge, the small car in front of me began braking and slowing down. We suddenly came to a complete stop on the bridge. I couldn't back up, and then I noticed 3 men exit the vehicle in front of me, holding guns, pointing them at my car. I went into reverse, and they began shooting at my vehicle. I could hear the bangs along with the whizzing of bullets flying by. I put the vehicle in drive and went ahead on with the men chasing us down. They all jumped out of the way as I whizzed by them driving the large armored Ford Expedition. The car was still parked in front of me, and I squeezed through the left side of the vehicle and the wall of the bridge, sideswiping the car completely. I drove off while I could see bullets hitting our bulletproof windows, shattering them but not breaking through. At this point, the customer began shouting to drive to the police station. As I slammed my foot on the gas, we exited the nearest ramp and drove into the local sheriff's station. We all made it safe, but the vehicle was riddled with bullets. I think my customers know who was chasing us down, but thanks to the bulletproofing of our vehicles, we all made it out safe. I later found out in the police reports my customer I was transporting was an ambassador for the Russian military.